They came from the stars, calling themselves the Zalari. Their ships glided through space like silent gods, their technology so far beyond ours that they saw us as nothing more than primitives, unworthy of sharing the galaxy. For years, they watched from their orbiting citadels, sending emissaries to study us, to analyze our history, our culture, our wars. And then they judged us. Humans are a violent, warlike species, their high tribunal declared. They have not outgrown their primitive instincts. Their past is stained with bloodshed, their future riddled with self-destruction. They do not deserve the enlightenment of the stars. They called us uncivilized. And so, they came, not with war, but with dominion. With a flick of their technology, they disabled our militaries, shut down our satellites, and rendered our weapons useless. Our leaders were given a choice: submit and be uplifted under their rule, or resist and be erased. Most of humanity, shocked by the suddenness of our conquest, accepted their rule. The Zalari were not cruel masters, at least not openly. They brought medicine, stabilized economies, eliminated war. But they also took control. They dictated our future, deciding what knowledge we could pursue, what ambitions were allowed. And they stripped us of one thing above all else: our ability to fight back. But there was one truth the Zalari never understood. Yes, we were violent. Yes, we had waged wars that scarred our world. But in those wars, we had created something terrible, something we had long since sworn never to use again. Weapons so powerful they could turn planets into cinders. Weapons so dangerous we buried them beneath the earth, locked them away in the cold dark places of our world, hoping never to awaken them again. The Zalari thought we were weak because we no longer wielded these weapons. They thought our civilization had been tamed. They were wrong. Because when the Zalari pushed too far, when they crossed the line between rulers and oppressors, humanity remembered its past. And we dug up the weapons we had sworn never to use again. The galaxy would soon learn what uncivilized truly meant. The Zalari arrived not with the clamor of war, but with the quiet assurance of superiority. Their ships, sleek and elegant, entered Earth's orbit as silent observers. From their advanced technology, they had seen our planet, monitored our progress, and judged us. To them, we were nothing more than a fleeting species, trapped in an endless loop of conflict, waste, and violence. Our history was their justification for conquest. The wars we had waged, the weapons we had created, the countless lives lost, all of it branded us as uncivilized. They believed we would never evolve, that our violence would destroy us long before we could reach the stars. When the Zalari made contact, it was with an offer. They promised peace, advancement, and a new future. But there was a catch: they would control everything. Their influence would spread, and in exchange, humanity would give up its sovereignty. Most of the world's governments, weary from centuries of strife, agreed. It seemed like a chance to avoid destruction, to move toward a better future. But for the few who resisted, it was the beginning of a long nightmare. The Zalari's true intentions were revealed over time. They began by disarming our military forces, using their superior technology to render our weapons useless. They established a new order, erasing borders and reshaping Earth's political landscape. Any attempts to fight back were crushed, with entire cities wiped out in the blink of an eye. But in the shadows, the spirit of rebellion began to stir. Part 2. The secrets beneath the surface. While most of humanity submitted to the Zalari's rule, there were those who remembered the past. Those who remembered the weapons we had once created, weapons so devastating that they had been buried beneath the earth, hidden away, and forgotten by all but a few. One of those few was Dr. Evelyn Jansen, a former weapons scientist who had worked on the very projects designed to protect Earth in case of an existential threat. She had been one of the chief engineers on a project known only as Project Revenant, an initiative to develop humanity's ultimate weapon in the event of an alien invasion. These weapons were capable of causing mass destruction, weapons that could reduce entire cities to ash, disable fleets in orbit, and even shatter the fabric of reality itself. When the Zalari began their occupation, Dr. Jansen knew the time was coming to act. She had spent years in hiding, trying to live a life of peace, but the invasion made it clear, peace was no longer an option. With the knowledge of these weapons buried deep within her mind, she knew she had to find a way to awaken them. Her first step was to contact an underground network of resistance groups, people who refused to accept the Zalari's dominance. The Resistance, as they were called, was a loose confederation of rogue soldiers, hackers, and ex-government officials. They had been fighting a losing battle against the Zalari, but Dr. Jansen's plan gave them hope. Together, they embarked on a mission to locate the hidden vaults, deep underground in the Siberian wastelands, where the weapons had been stored. It was no easy task. The Zalari had tracked every movement, monitored every attempt at rebellion. But Dr. Jansen knew the location, and with the help of the Resistance, they infiltrated the area. After weeks of digging, they uncovered a forgotten military base, buried beneath layers of earth and rock. Inside, they found the remnants of Project Revenant, a stockpile of devastating weapons, each more terrifying than the last. The most dangerous of all was a series of gravimetric bombs, capable of collapsing entire cities and regions into black holes. But there was a catch: the weapons had been deactivated, their triggers removed. The world had grown too scared of what they could do, and so humanity had buried them to prevent their misuse. To make them functional again, Dr. Jansen and her team would need to bypass the fail-safes and reactivate them. It was a race against time. The Zalari had begun searching for the Resistance, and if they found Dr. Jansen's team, the weapons would be lost forever. But with the stakes higher than ever, Dr. Jansen took the risk. She reactivated the weapons. The world was about to change. Part 3, The First Assault. The first strike was swift and deadly. The Resistance, now armed with the newly reactivated gravimetric bombs and other advanced weaponry, launched a series of coordinated attacks against the Zalari strongholds. Their first target was a critical supply line in the Atlantic, where Zalari forces had established a base of operations. The gravimetric bombs worked better than anyone could have imagined. Upon detonation, the bombs created miniature black holes, causing the Zalari base to collapse in on itself, swallowing everything in its vicinity. The explosion was so powerful that it disrupted the Zalari's communication networks and left them scrambling to respond. Humanity had struck the first blow, and it was devastating. The Zalari had underestimated us. They had thought us weak, broken, incapable of defending ourselves. But the weapons humanity had once created for destruction had been awakened, and now they were being used for a different purpose, to reclaim what was ours. The Zalari retaliated with force, unleashing their advanced fleets upon Earth's atmosphere. They bombarded cities, took control of strategic locations, and retaliated with strikes that sent shockwaves across the planet. The war had escalated into a full-scale battle, and humanity was once again at the forefront of a fight for survival. But the Zalari had made a critical error. They had pushed humanity too far. We had been living under their rule for far too long, and now we had the power to fight back, powered by weapons we had sworn never to use again. Part 4, Humanity's Awakening. The conflict grew larger with each passing day. As the Zalari launched more attacks, the Resistance, fueled by the power of the forgotten weapons, fought back with unmatched intensity. Humanity had awakened from its long slumber, remembering the strength and tenacity that had once made us the dominant species on Earth. We fought not just for survival, but for the very soul of our planet. Each victory was a statement, a declaration that we would never again bow to another species. The Zalari, realizing they had underestimated us, began to panic. They launched their most powerful weapon, an armada of warships designed to annihilate entire continents. But by then, it was too late. Humanity had discovered its true strength, and we were no longer afraid to use it. In the final, climactic battle, the Resistance and the reactivated weapons clashed with the Zalari's advanced fleets. The battle raged across the skies, but it was humanity's weapons, old, dangerous, and devastating, that tipped the balance in our favor. The Zalari were forced to retreat, their empire crumbling under the weight of their own arrogance. The battle had reached its apex. The Zalari's once immense fleet, now scattered and disordered, hung like broken stars in the expanse of space. Earth's skies had become a chaotic battlefield, as old weapons, unfathomable to the Zalari, rained down upon their forces with unrelenting force. Humanity's desperate rebellion had become a full-fledged war, and the Zalari were beginning to understand the price of underestimating us. Dar. Evelyn Jansen, now commanding the Resistance's final strike, stood in the bridge of a commandeered Zalari warship, staring at the massive figure of the Titan Ark in the distance. The ship was a fortress, armed with weapons that could shatter Earth in seconds. But there was one thing the Zalari had forgotten: their technology, though powerful, was not invincible. They had not considered the hidden legacy of human ingenuity, the very weapons they had feared and sought to destroy. They had pushed us to the edge, but now they were about to face the consequences. "The Titan Ark is coming into range," a voice crackled over the communications system. "It's preparing to fire its main cannon. We have one shot." One shot. That was all they had left. Dr. Jansen's fingers flew over the console, inputting the final coordinates. She had to make this count. The gravimetric bomb, the most devastating weapon humanity had ever created, was loaded onto the warship's primary cannon. Unlike the bombs used before, this one had been modified. Its reach would be vast enough to cripple the Titan Ark and disable its defenses, but the power it held would change the course of the battle for good. "Firing sequence engaged," Jansen said, her voice steady. "All units, prepare for impact." The entire fleet, once scattered, now aligned, their engines burning hot with a singular purpose: to bring down the Zalari Empire. The Titan Ark responded. Its massive cannon hummed with power as it charged, preparing to fire a beam that could obliterate Earth's major cities in an instant. The Resistance's ships sped toward it, barely dodging fire as they rushed forward in their final gambit. Dr. Jansen's heart raced as she watched the countdown. Every second felt like a lifetime. But just as the Titan Ark's cannon began to glow with catastrophic energy, she pressed the final button. The gravimetric bomb fired. It soared through the vacuum of space, a streak of pure destruction. The Zalari didn't even have time to respond. The bomb detonated just as the Titan Ark unleashed its own weapon. The results were catastrophic. A black hole formed at the core of the Zalari ship, pulling everything into its event horizon. The massive vessel was consumed in seconds, its powerful shields powerless against the force of the human-made weapon. But it didn't stop there. The chain reaction spread throughout the fleet. The gravimetric bomb had done more than disable the Titan Ark. It had triggered a ripple effect across the Zalari's fleet, disrupting their technology, tearing apart their defense grids, and sending ships spiraling into the abyss. Humanity's weapon had worked. The Zalari had lost. Outro: A new dawn. The victory came at a cost. When the final remnants of the Zalari fleet were swept from Earth's orbit, it was clear that humanity had won. The Resistance forces gathered on Earth's surface in scattered but jubilant celebrations, but there was no mistaking the truth: our world had been changed. The sky above was still darkened by the smoke of destruction. Cities had fallen. Lives had been lost. Dr. Jansen stood at the edge of the ruins, gazing out at the horizon. The Earth had survived, but it would never be the same. The war had not just claimed the lives of the invaders, it had also claimed a part of us. Humanity had been forced to confront its darkest instincts, to revisit the weapons we had sworn to never use again. But in doing so, we had reclaimed our future. The Zalari were gone, but the question remained: what had we become? The world's leaders were already preparing for the future. New alliances were formed, and humanity began to rebuild, not just its cities, but its identity. The lessons of the past were not forgotten. The weapons of the past were locked away again, but the memory of their power lingered. We had proven the Zalari wrong. We were not uncivilized. But we had also proven that humanity's capacity for violence could never be ignored. We had learned the price of power, and now, we stood at the crossroads of our own destiny. The galaxy had seen the true nature of humanity, and it was no longer the same. We had learned that when pushed to the brink, when faced with extinction, humanity would rise. But it also understood that such a rise came with a cost that should never be paid lightly again. The weapons we swore never to use again had shown the universe what humanity was capable of. The question remained, would we now be the guardians of peace, or would we fall back into the endless cycle of violence and war? As the sun rose over Earth, a new chapter began for humanity. The war was over, but the struggle for identity, for peace, for survival, had only just begun. The battle was over, but the scars remained. In the wake of the victory, Earth was left with a profound silence. The Zalari were gone, their once powerful fleet reduced to ruins, but the cost of this freedom was etched deeply into the planet. Cities lay in ruin, the air heavy with the remnants of war. The resistance, now humanity's defenders, gathered in the aftermath, their faces a mix of relief and somber reflection. Dr. Evelyn Jansen, the architect of humanity's ultimate retaliation, stood amid the wreckage, staring at the horizon where the first rays of dawn began to pierce the smoke-filled skies. It was a new day for Earth, but the weight of their victory bore heavily on her. Humanity had come through the fire, but had it truly learned its lesson? Would it rebuild in peace, or would the same hunger for power that led to their downfall emerge again? As leaders of Earth gathered in the ruins, plans to rebuild were already in motion. But there was no pretense of a perfect future. This was the beginning of a new era, one that would demand greater wisdom and responsibility from the very species that had created the weapons that nearly destroyed them. "We've won," Dr. Jansen said quietly to herself, the words feeling foreign, almost impossible to believe. But the real challenge is what's to come. In every corner of the globe, there was hope. But it was a cautious hope, tempered by the knowledge of what they had unlocked and unleashed. The weapons of the past, which had been buried and feared, had been reawakened, and now the balance of power in the universe was forever altered. Humanity had proven its strength, but it had also shown the universe just how dangerous it could be. As the world began to rebuild, new systems of government and defense were put in place to ensure that humanity would never again be tempted by the destructive power that had nearly consumed it. But the leaders knew that in the dark corners of the world, there would always be those who remembered the weapons of the past, the weapons humanity had sworn never to use again. And so, Earth's journey into the future began, not with the certainty of peace, but with the understanding that peace was something that had to be earned every day, through vigilance, wisdom, and unity. The galaxy had witnessed what humanity could do when it was pushed to the brink. But now the real question remained, what would humanity choose to become? Would they learn from their past mistakes, or would they once again embrace the very weapons that had brought them to the edge of extinction? As the sun rose over a war-torn Earth, the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humanity would not be forgotten. The universe had seen their resilience, their capacity for survival, and their willingness to fight for their future. The weapons of the past had been used, but they would not define humanity's destiny. That, now, was in their hands.